This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it's time for Heart Mojo with Melinda Smith. And Melinda, we're doing back-to-back weeks this month, so I think your listeners, when they go to the page, they may be a little bit confused, but occasionally we turn things around. But you're bringing in a guest today who we've tried to have on before, so go ahead and get started.
Well, I'm so happy that we have Ben Rossi from InMotion. Are you a co-founder? Is that correct, of InMotion?
Yes, sure am.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So first, InMotion is a clubhouse, quote unquote, for Parkinson's patients, for people who have Parkinson's disease. But before we get into what you do there, how it helps the challenge of Parkinson's with everyone, let's hear a little bit about you and your background and how you got there.
Well, sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor. I'd love to share our story always. My story, I've been a fitness professional for 26 years. And in addition to being a co-founder and chief program officer of InMotion, I'm also a gym owner of about 13 years now of a gym called ATP, which stands for Ability to Perform. My career is been a great one. I love what I do for a living. Long ago, I began working with young kids, childhood obesity, and would go into some of the local private schools, Hathaway Brown, and others, and share a good story of how important health and fitness is, and how it's just as important as, as education, and you need to take care of yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a great message, and I love that. And my career went into everybody else's fitness career, where you're training people for vacations, for weddings, for so on and so forth. I stumbled into an opportunity about midway through my career to go study at IMG Academy in Florida, which is like Disneyland for athletes. If you're not familiar with it, it was an opportunity to train with the best of the best. Who trains the pro athletes? Who trains Olympians, and what is the science behind it, from character to mentality to nutrition to vision training to just everything, performance training. So it took me from personal trainer to performance coach. And really, it was pretty eye-opening. It really changed my perspective. I was never going to be a gym owner, and that was really the driving force that did it for me. Who wants to take that on? Another gym. I wanted it to be different. I opened ATP before CrossFit and some of the other gyms popped on scene, and it was the idea of if athletes are the most in shape people in the world, why can't everybody train like an athlete? When I was an athlete, I played college football, I was a captain in high school, all that stuff. So it prompted me to open a facility. The connections I made at IMG Academy were unbelievable. Some of the greatest people in the industry, including working with founders of like the Wounded Warrior Project.
Mm-hmm.
That was an amazing connection. It ended up becoming one of the things that really catapulted me into this world of, passion and empathy to work for people with Parkinson's. And I was fortunate to work with a gentleman named Sergeant Siobhan Phillip, and he was unfortunately ran over a roadside bomb. All the banners you see on the freeway were all the people he was with, and his battalion. And we worked together for 3 years. And this was someone that was wheelchair bound, had a feeding tube, had a trach in. And I, alongside one of my other business partners, worked with him. It was 2-on-1. And in that 3 years time, we got him from wheelchair to walking with assistance to training hard. It was just an unbelievable experience. Our communication was done through eyebrow raising. It was just unbelievable. And it taught me so much about just, it changes your perspective, like big time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But along the same time, two of my longtime clients that I'd worked with forever were diagnosed with Parkinson's. One in Lee Handel and Alan Goldberg. There was 5 founders of InMotion: the late Lee Handel, late Alan Goldberg, myself, Dr. David Riley, and Dr. Karen Jaffe. And Lee was the first one, and he called me on a Wednesday and was like, I've just been diagnosed with Parkinson's. Do you have any idea what that means? And I said, well, I studied it in college forever ago, but no, honestly, I don't. He goes, well, I've heard that exercise is starting to become something. Would you be interested in learning? I said, absolutely. He goes, well, that's good, because I already signed you up and you're going on Friday. and he sent me off to Columbus, and that's where I met David Zid and Jackie Russell. They are the founders of Delay the Disease, which is now Total Parkinson's. And I was one of 6 individuals that took his very first course, and it was a Friday through a Sunday, and by Sunday I was pretty much blown away, head over heels, driven to take this back home. And now, when you find out that exercise for Parkinson's is just as powerful as medication and can truly delay the symptoms and push things back and help people live a better life, I was sold. So I took it back to, I was a graduate of Mentor High School, so I went to the Mentor Senior Center and just pitched the idea. It was 35,000 people in Northeast Ohio with Parkinson's. What do you think about me maybe starting a class here and giving it a shot? And 5 people turned to 10. The local Mentor channel did a story about us. We had like 35 people a week for 10 years. I mean, it was like incredible. And it was all walks of life with Parkinson's. We're at InMotion, we do things a little bit differently, where we assess people and we're able to categorize them so if they're able to maximize their potential where they are with Parkinson's. In this setting, I brought everybody into one room, wheelchair, walker, young onset, you name it. And it really taught me how to work with all levels and really truly changed my perspective on that.
I know the Mentor Chamber, the Mentor Senior Center is quite large. So you had to have a lot of people. So what made you leave Mentor and end up in Beechwood? Because that's where InMotion is.
Well, I was always in Beechwood, and I would leave Beechwood to go to Mentor to take a class once a week. So I had the gym. I had an 8,000 square foot facility, 60 yards of turf. I loved my gym. It was great. And I trained the landlord, and I begged her, because we started talking. I met Karen Jaffe through a trainer friend of mine, and her neurologist was Dr. Riley. And all of a sudden, all these pieces started coming together. And at the same time that I was learning about Parkinson's and met all these individuals, University Hospital started the first ever boot camp for Parkinson's. And I'll come back to how I ended up in Beechwood, but this was a great event. It was about 200 people at Lander Haven in Beechwood, and the morning was like neurologists, movement disorder specialists, physical therapists, speech therapists that were speaking about what's trending with Parkinson's. In the afternoon was you could participate in a Delay the Disease class, a rock steady boxing class, a Yes I Can Dance class, and it was pretty neat. It was the first time I saw 200 people with Parkinson's together, and you see light bulbs going like, oh my gosh, this is a disease that has stigma attached to it. And it's a bit isolating, and to see everybody else realize all those other people that are living with this as well, how neat is this? And so it was 4 in the afternoon rolls around, and it's like, well, listen, we'll see you next year for the boot camp. And it was a little frustrating for me. They brought Rock City Boxing in from Indianapolis, David's in from Columbus. They brought in the dance company out of New York City, where I'm going. You see where I'm going. There was nothing going on locally except my class in Mentor. So to fast forward that whole story, the second year it happened again, and I was done with it. I needed to do something. My gym, and I mentioned that my landlord was someone I trained. Well, I had a space next to my gym, and that was where InMotion started. So I had already had the space. It was a smaller facility next door. We ended up cutting a hole in the wall once we formed the nonprofit and went for it. And it was a process of me reaching out to every possible organization that I could, that I had met through these boot camps, and people that are doing exercise for Parkinson's, and saying, well, what if we got all of these forms of exercise for Parkinson's, not just one here, not just one in this facility in Mentor, or a boxing class over here, no, all together, a true community center for Parkinson's. And it was free of charge. We didn't want to charge anybody. We wanted 0 barriers for someone to join. We're free. Get in here and be with us. And at that time, my facility was full of athletes and pro athletes, and it was a neat setting where you had pro athletes training with someone with Parkinson's next to you. It was really cool. And so that was located in off of Miles Road, Richard Road and Miles out that way, Warrensville. And we just quickly grew out of the space. The problem is that my facility, my gym, became like the wow factor, and InMotion was a little small space next door where we were getting the job done. It was a phenomenal community and we were doing what we had to do, but events and everything were happening in my facility. So right before the pandemic, we said, it's time, let's go buy our own building. And so that's why we moved, we purchased a building and then the pandemic hit. It was a great timing.
Yeah, I actually remember that.
Hey,
Working in the senior community, you get exposed to the different things in the area, which is why I wanted to have you on to get more exposure. We hope for all the good work that you do. But I remember you just opened and then the pandemic hit and
yeah,
kind
it was crazy.
you weren't in motion, you were stuck.
We were stuck. Well, with the pandemic, it's a whole nother story, right? Imagine having 5 days a week of classes. You have 35 coaches that are rocking and rolling in every possible modality for Parkinson's. And we shut down on a Friday. I think it was Friday the 13th or whatever I think it was. And I got with my coaches and said, hey, listen, Parkinson's doesn't stop. So neither can we. We got to rock and roll. We got to get our schedule out immediately. And I'm telling you, in 2 days, my coaches all recorded their classes. And we started before Zoom, for all this stuff. With a recorded schedule. Our schedule was loaded. Everyone could continue to exercise, watching videos until we realized that's not enough. And then, you teach an entire community how to run Zoom. That was fun. But,
Yeah, that was always a challenge for us who work in the senior community. A lot of seniors, they weren't tech savvy.
No.
So it was a lot of work to get them to understand Zoom, let alone, all of our medical appointments, not all, but a lot of them were also, on Zoom or on a computer, and people had a hard time with that. But I noticed, I do get your online email. So I noticed that you have exercises online for people still.
Oh, absolutely. We are actually in the process of, on the new year, we're re-recording all new videos and restructuring everything. So it's more user-friendly. It follows our system. We have a true InMotion approach that we have, and it needs to be well-defined. I'm going to be rolling out a prescription for exercise based upon what I've learned in the past 12, 13 years working in the community. And I'm working closely with the National Parkinson's Foundation on helping really promote the exercise recommendations for people with Parkinson's and how that looks under the InMotion umbrella. So,
but you guys do more than exercise, right? What other things do you offer people to help them in this process?
We have a really strong system we follow, and when you walk in our doors or contact us, you immediately sign up for an orientation. And that orientation, obviously, it'll tell you about the facility and what we offer and the different forms of care that we have. You're immediately signed up for an assessment. Our assessment process is something that I created, and we've been doing it for about 8 years now. And I've presented those results literally in Portland, Oregon, Kyoto, Japan, and Barcelona this past summer. And that puts you into a color system. So either yellow, green, orange, or blue. No color level is right or wrong. It's just where you are with your Parkinson's. Yellow being our wheelchair walker group, blue level all the way up to blue being more our young onset or really, really capable group. In addition to that assessment, you're signed up for PD 101, and we teamed up with the Davis Finney Foundation long ago because they have a phenomenal book. It's called Every Victory Counts, and it's hands down, if you're someone with Parkinson's, one of the greatest resources you could ever have. It really breaks it down. What does this mean when you're diagnosed, and where do I go from here? And because one of the biggest things I've learned, and all of us as founders learned, when we open our doors, no one knew what their diagnosis was. It would show up so confused. Like, here's your diagnosis. Well, good luck, And we wanted to make sure that didn't happen. So we teamed up with Davis Finney and said, hey, can we use your curriculum and can we use your book and turn it into a PD 101 course? So we developed a 6-week course using that book of various topics of medications and what's it like, relationships, exercise, of course, and so on and so forth. So beyond that, we have a variety of classes, like you mentioned. The physical wellness side, we're talking Better Every Day, which is our signature amplitude-based programming. And then the boxing and spinning and Drums Alive is an amazing class that we offer. And then we have this healing arts world, mindful movement. It's a specific yoga for Parkinson's. We have Pilates classes. Yes, I Can Dance is an excellent one. And then I developed an area of focus called Fit for You. And Fit for You is our intensive program. So if you're someone with Parkinson's, it's more about the specific needs. Do you have speech issues? Do you have problems swallowing? How's your handwriting? Or do you like to be creative? We have art classes and we have handwriting classes. We even started a new class called Melodica, which is really awesome for people that have low voice volume. And that's actually a little mini piano, and you have to breathe into the machine in order to get sound out. So really creative ways of not only adding in multitasking, dual tasking, but really fun ways to enhance and bring back that quality of life for individuals. So we also have support groups. We have an excellent series called PD Cafe, which is we kind of separate the room into small group tables. And there's people with Parkinson's in a group, and then there's care partners in a group, and obviously sharing their stories. Ask the Expert is a monthly program we have where we bring in some of the best around the area and beyond to come speak and share their story. Living in Motion is an event we run every year, which I believe you might have seen or heard of before, and that was excellent. We brought in some phenomenal speakers. These are nationally recognized individuals. Dr. Michael Oken came and joined us this year, and we put on a great display of exercise and shared that. And then, of course, we have our annual race, Pals in Motion race, we do every year, which really is about a third of our operating budget. I believe we raised about $475,000 this year. Our services are free of charge, so every penny counts. Now, in addition to all that, the biggest thing we have is that camaraderie and that community. Again, with such an isolating and stigma attached disease, it's fascinating to see. It's just this blossoming community, and we're fortunate in our new facility to have a cafe, and it's become such a gathering place. And individuals just share their stories, and they help each other. Says, oh, you see that blank stare? They need you. We got to help you, and they always swoop each other up and help out constantly. So,
Do you see an average age coming in to your place? Because my understanding, I've been in your facility, and I've also been there for some great lectures. Is there a certain age group that tends to be there more than others? And are you reaching out to different age groups?
we'll reach out to everyone. The first part of your question, I would say that like 65 and up is typically, 65 to 80 is a pretty average age. It's in our facility. And we have connections which took a long time, with all the local neurologists and movement disorder specialists and OT speech and so on and so forth. So I tell you that because that's become a very large referral source for us. And what I'm passionate about is continuum of care. And it really is something that's not happening for Parkinson's, and it's a bother for me. And I've written a lot of material about it, and I'm really working locally to bring that to fruition. And it really is, you seek you get diagnosed, you immediately get referred to a physical therapist. PT has got to be a player in this game from square one. It's about pre-disability, not worried about post-rehab. This is about staying ahead of Parkinson's. You should seek out a physical therapist. It should be a referral right from your doctor, and you get a one-on-one assessment so that you can look at these. I mentioned Fit for You. You can look at these specific areas of weakness that you need to hone in on. And then it's the physical therapist and the speech therapist and the OTs that refer to community-based care, and that's InMotion. We're one of a kind. There's nothing else like us. And that's for real. Those aren't just words being said. This is something that no one's doing. Matter of fact, we're developing a replication model right now, and we're speaking with an organization out of Detroit, Chicago, and Manhattan that really want to bring an InMotion-based approach to their community. So yeah, that's important to me, and getting this continuum of care launch is going to be something else, and it needs to happen. But it takes a team effort. We're going at the hospitals with this, like, hey, we need you to recognize this and start doing this and creating this care. So, people are going to their physical therapist, they're coming to see us in between their community, and then going back to PT, and then going back to neurologists or movement disorder specialists. And it's going to take it's a challenging approach, but it needs to happen. It's something that I really want to do.
What I like about your location is, in my understanding with Parkinson's, is it hits everybody kind of differently. There's not one type of Parkinson's. Not everybody has a tremor. Not everybody freezes. Not everybody has voice issues or handwriting issues. So I think that that's really cool. That's really neat what you have, because you can hit all the different areas that
Bottom line.
someone may have.
Have to.
It can change and grow, can start with one thing, add to another. Because I don't think they have a true cause. They know some things that cause Parkinson's, but there's so many varieties that there's not one thing that you can hone in on and say, okay, this is what we're going to do for this.
Right,
with-
exactly.
with
Yeah,
the
you talk about
diagnosis.
cause, so, you know, that that's a big thing. You know, the biggest that they found so far is paraquat, and paraquat is, you know, what we find in our lawn fertilizers and so on and so forth. These are things that have gotten into water systems and under the earth and are trickling, and those are areas.
Well,
that-
and head trauma, right? I think a lot of
head
people
trauma. There's a lot of
know
studies.
Muhammad Ali, right, with his
Yeah,
Parkinson's.
Absolutely, head trauma is a big one. You know, there's a lot of studies that are forming now with Parkinson's in like the NFL or people at the football and those type of collisions that happen. And so yeah, it's sadly an ever growing field.
Well,
There's
and my understanding is people with Parkinson's, the numbers are growing.
tremendous.
Which, yeah, so there's got to be a reason for it. There has
Absolutely.
to be an environmental piece or a genetic piece that we were missing before. Maybe we didn't have enough people actually diagnosed with it.
Oh, I
Because
believe
there's
that.
so many varieties, so many symptoms.
If you say undiagnosed, I mean, you know, we worked in Warrensville. Compared to Beecher, it's a little bit different area.
Mhm.
And you know, people aren't seeking diagnosis. They're not getting diagnosed. They don't have
Right.
access to care. I mean, that's a whole. We can go off on a tangent about, you know, DEI and
Sure.
access, and it's tough. I sat in some, you know, Word Church and some other areas, and what I was told is that my father had that shaking. It was, you know, shaky man's disease or something like that, and it's like they don't even know what it really is, and people aren't
Right.
getting diagnosed. So
But-
yeah, there's a lot out there that need our help.
We're going through such changes in the medical industry to begin with. Okay.
Mhm.
Number one, you can't get into a doctor for 6
For
months.
months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
And when you get in, you may not even be seen by the doctor, maybe the nurse practitioner who says, oh, wow, we got to reschedule you so you can see the doctor.
So you can see the
Um,
doctor.
And so that's got to be frustrating for somebody who says, I have this symptom. And today, most of us Google it, or we tell our kids about it, they Google it. And all of a sudden now we have a diagnosis before the doctor ever saw us. Okay.
The Google rabbit hole, right?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I remember growing up, he was my great uncle, he was my father's uncle. I probably was maybe 7 or 8 years old. And I was sitting next to him and his hand was going like that on my back. And I liked it. It felt good. And I said, oh, I'm getting a massage. And my mother pulled me away from him so quickly. And she said, shh, we don't talk about those things. You know, and then I learned much
yeah.
later in life, yes, he did have Parkinson's.
Hmm.
But I think what your organization is doing, you're giving Parkinson's a chance to live.
Yes. Yes. You know, I got to say that's a great comment, and I hear constantly, I got my life back. Like things are amazing since my diagnosis, and I hear that all the time, and that's a blessing. It's wonderful to hear that. And yes, that is 100% the goal. This is about. It's not what we do in here. Well, what we do under our roof is very important, and it must translate to your daily life. I want you to leave here and live a better life with this. This is not you're shut down. That's it. No way. No way. I don't believe that at all. The only way that happens is if you're doing nothing for it. I'd say use it or lose it, or use it to improve it. All right. You got to use it and you got to improve it and you got to get better, and you will get better in so many different ways that you never even imagined. Yeah.
So do you see someone coming in, maybe they didn't get diagnosed for several years and they've had some sort of symptoms? Let's say they come into you and they're not on medication. Can you get improvement by simply adding in exercise? And I know you're not a doctor, so I'm not saying fix it. But what I'm saying is some improvement. And then once you add medication, can you see more improvement?
In reverse. medication is hugely important to Parkinson's. They should go hand in hand. Many are very, very fearful of going on medication because they believe that like you could max out your dose and then you won't be able, it won't be effective for you in the long run. Excellent neurologists in Cleveland, excellent medical system, and they understand how to regulate that. But exercise is like I said before, it's like a dose of medication. And yes, people improve massively with medication, without medication. You got to think of the population. You specifically to some of the elderly people that come in that have had Parkinson's a long, long time, and maybe exercise wasn't a big part of their life at all.
Right.
And you see massive changes. It's like as soon as you introduce this idea of strength and mobility and amplitude and big, and yeah, you see massive changes. And but for what I've seen the most is when the medication and exercise are working together, you definitely see a more accelerated improvement pattern, I guess. That's what I say.
So you mentioned that, you have your coffee area there, right? Your hangout spot. And do you put people together? Like, so when somebody comes in, let's say they live alone or their family doesn't live in town, so they don't have a lot of support. So how do you help them build that support network?
Well, it does happen organically. So people do really, when I say swoop each other up, it's like they see them coming. But we do have a buddy system internally at InMotion for a lot of our veterans that have been with us for a long, long time. Veterans to Parkinson's, veterans to InMotion, that have been with us since day one. And yeah, they have formed their own committee and they make calls to new people, to new participants, and yes, so that happens organically. We start to bring them together. So yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, so we don't leave anybody behind. We make sure that someone's always got an eye on somebody. Welcome.
So are some of your coaches Parkinson's patients?
No, none of my coaches have Parkinson's.
I didn't know if they were, part of that buddy system.
No, the buddy system. So we could not do what we do without volunteers. I mean, our volunteer hours are like 450 volunteer hours a month. I mean, it's and beyond. Wow. But there's a huge portion of our volunteers. So I'll explain what that means in a minute. But a huge portion of our volunteers are people with Parkinson, and these are typically blue level, upper level functioning, and they're helping out with very low levels in yellow classes and green. And so we see that nonstop. But our volunteers start from our front desk when you walk in, all volunteer driven. Every one of my classes, I have 2 paid Parkinson specific coaches that are nationally accredited and belong there in the room to keep our class to a 10-to-1 ratio, coach to PWP. And then I always have 2 to 3, possibly 4 volunteers in those classes as well. I developed a volunteer training program so they understand what to expect, what to see, what to do, so it's all hands on deck in there. It really is. And understand that like safety is always our bottom line. It's cliche. No, it is. This is a disease of falling. Things happen. That's just how it is. And that's a whole nother topic to get on. Let me just give an example of someone with freezing of gait. Okay, we see freezing of gait all the time. Your mind's like, I'm going to walk. Your feet are like, man, I'm going to stay right here on the floor. And then you see someone get anxious, and then they next move, they're so anxious, like we talked about earlier, that they want to fall forward, right? And if someone does fall in class, and I'm saying it because it's amazing how if you fall, it's an embarrassing thing, right? There, not there. That's what we're all like, oh, let's get you, and we embrace you,
right?
This is a part of it, and we all get it.
So do you have things coming up, like new programs coming in or anything that you want to give a quick shout out on and share?
Yeah, definitely. We are early this year, we really hit like a wait list issue. Like we're bringing in 30 new people a month consistently. and classes were getting full. How can you offer a wellness center for people with Parkinson's and have a wait list? And so it's been a challenge this year with our growth to expand our classes and go from there. So we've recently rolled out and are in the process of rolling out about 9 new classes. One was the melodic I mentioned, the Fit for You class. We breathe into the machine. We're expanding upon our lower level classes, which is our yellow level, as I mentioned. We have found that a combination of classes is what works for them. So we continue, meaning 20 minutes of a mindfulness, 20 minutes of a better everyday class, and 20 minutes of boxing or mindfulness, better everyday, and drums alive. It's capacity of how much they can handle. So we've merged classes and are expanding that. We've taken a deep dive into falls and not only falls prevention, but how to recover from a fall. So our fall prevention programming is expanding big time. Combining for our green levels, more better every day. Better every day is our signature class, and I keep mentioning that, but that is like that's like my baby, and it's just taking off. We've done a better every day in boxing class combined together. It's really about just maximizing people's time when they're there, and how we can meet them.
Do you make suggestions to them?
In terms
So
of what?
if, let's say I came in and you've got all these great programs and they all sound good. You send a list, so I have a cheat sheet right here. So they all sound good and you don't want to overdo, right? You don't want to try to do too much in a day. So are you there to help them choose classes? Does somebody sit down and say, hey, okay, you're at this level, because you explained there's levels. Here's the classes you can take. Our suggestion is you do A, B, C.
Let me expand upon that. So right at assessment ends, I sit everybody down and we get excited about it. We clap it up and I congratulate them on getting their benchmark. Now we know where you are. Okay. Now we can figure out where we got to go. Whether you're yellow, green, orange, blue, it doesn't matter. It's where you are. And so we're going to go from here. And then I say, my next words are, we have 6 months until your next assessment. So I always try to keep a little kick in the pants, like, hey, you got 6 months, let's get going. So then what do you do next? So yes, we have a system we follow. There's 2 answers to this. First, I worked closely during the pandemic with the Parkinson's Foundation. About 35 of us from around the country met in Miami and developed the exercise requirements for people with Parkinson's, recommendations for exercise. How much aerobics should we do in a week? How many, physical wellness type classes should we do? How many healing arts based classes should we do to keep it safe, right? So we know that aerobics 3 per week, 3 30-minute sessions per week. You should be getting 150 minutes of rigorous, moderate to rigorous exercise each week. So what I've done is I've developed a prescription for exercise, and this is fresh. This is coming out fresh. It will be launched in January. We'll be doing a whole marketing approach to it, but it really defines exactly how many you should take each week of these specific classes. Physical wellness, you should take 3. You should be taking 3 healing arts, at least up to 2 fit for use per week. So all of our calendars are color coded. So if you receive do your assessment and you say, I'm an orange level, here's your orange level classes. Here's how many you should be taking. These are the ones you choose from based upon what you like to do. Well, it's not always about what you like to do. Sometimes you got to do what you need, but and it really spells it out for people so they understand where to go. So you're not lost. That took time to learn that. I mean, we've done assessments and this for over 8 years, and it took me a while. Really, look, we're going in 8 years, and I'm rolling this out in January. So it's been a process to do that because you got to learn about people and what they require.
Right.
And it really helped a nudge and working closely with the Parkinson's Foundation to create these exercise guidelines. I mean, there's plenty out there for general population and so on and so forth, but what about PD? And so honored to be a part of that. Love the knowledge I learned from it, but now it's time to make it InMotion's approach, and that'll be coming out in January. So.
The thing that made me think about it is I was a fitness coach a while ago. Then I got breast cancer. So I switched gears, right? And I started doing videos to help people with cancer get through the process while I was going through the process. But when I was a coach, it always helped to give somebody a plan because you're being thrown into this. You don't know which direction to turn. Same
Yeah.
things here, right? You get a life-changing diagnosis. You're not quite sure what to do. And I'm very sure that the medical profession, maybe you have some that are like, hey, go to InMotion. But I would venture to say a lot of them say, here's the prescription. We'll see you in 6 months.
100%. You hear that all the time. And you know, you're hitting on something else that, you know, in the fitness profession, a lot of, and you understand this, a lot, you can't do anything without assessment. And it's something that I pride myself in. It's how the heck would I know what to do with you if I don't assess you? I'm just going to put you
Right.
through some general plan that everybody does. No, right? Everything needs to be measured, and you need to understand where you're starting from in order to get somewhere else. And that's been a valuable thing that we've done. And it really is just it's allowed us to stay evidence-based, to prove that our community in aggregate is, and that's what we presented in Barcelona. We took on a chunk of people from before the pandemic, what happened to them during the pandemic, where were they when they got back, and then we assessed them for a year and a half. And that's what I showed. And we are on the move. You know, so really neat. Really, really cool.
Do you encourage family members to come in with, with husbands, wives, grandparents, so that they can understand what's going on?
Absolutely. Well, yes and no. Of course, we want the family to be involved like crazy. Initially, when we do assessments, we like to assess them away from their
Sure.
care partner. It allows us to get to know them. I don't want anything going on between the two while we're doing it. So, and typically at that point, there's care partners that are gathered together in our cafe while we're doing assessments, and right away they form their group. It's amazing how it happens. But the family is everything. We would never rule that out. Our programming is truly specific to people with Parkinson. I will say this, that we are bringing in, each year I do a capstone project with Cleveland State University in the doctorate occupational therapy program. And this year, I have a young lady coming in that her family has someone with Parkinson's. She's been a longtime caregiver, care partner. And that's her main focus. So we are taking a huge dive into care partners, also starting in January. She starts right up in the turn of the year. So
We got a lot coming on in the new year for sure.
it's not, it is so much. It's too much, but I love it. So it's good.
That's okay.
Take it all
So
out.
what about the emotional piece? And this is physical. And I know when you are physical, it does help release anxiety and stress and the tension. But do you have any specific things for the psychological piece to this? Or is that another future project?
No. I mean, of course, physicals, we do a ton of physical wellness, but the emotional side of it is just as important, right? I mean, it's easy to lose your mind with this stuff, specifically right from a diagnosis. This is why at our facility we have healing arts. This is why we encourage people to be involved in the programming that allows them to work on anxiety, depression, that type of fatigue, and really center you. It couldn't be more valuable. The idea of mindfulness is a big deal. So most of our population uses that approach to it. The other emotion, being able to speak and talk about what you're doing is important. So support groups and that type of stuff is also very important to us, and we offer all those as well. So
I just remember going to my first cancer group discussion after diagnosis and watching everybody like a deer in the headlight. Now, I tend to be a very positive person. I used to work in plastic surgery. I was very familiar with breast cancer and all the parts associated with that. So my approach coming in from a fitness coach, which was already, a motivational piece, that's how I handled it. And that's why I developed the videos to do that. And that's how I got here, right, Karen?
Right.
It was from my motivational videos. But I would think cancer, I hate to say it this way, but cancer is an accepted illness. You have cancer. Oh, are you getting treatment? Oh, great. Are you better? You're either better or you're not better, but that's not Parkinson's.
no, definitely. Way different.
Parkinson's is a constant process that you have to continue to fight. You don't fight for 6 months with your chemotherapy and then work your way back. And believe me, I have a lot of very close friends that I have lost to cancer. So I'm not minimizing that. I'm just saying that out in the world, it's discussed a lot, especially October,
absolutely.
right?
Mhm.
And it's a very accepted diagnosis. And I think you're right. People who are diagnosed with Parkinson's, they're in it's like being diagnosed with TB back in the day, right?
Sure, and you
The
hide
stigma.
yourself, hide yourself away.
So I think it's really important for your organization to get out there and explain it's not that you still have very viable people out there in the world. So speaking of that, what do you do with the working community? Because we talked about the fact that the average age is 65, maybe to 80. So how do you handle people who work in the day who may not have that kind of time to just stop in for your programming?
That has always been a big question by many. It's certainly not, before I answer that, it's not our largest population.
Mhm.
Our green level of programming, which is a little bit later stage, and that is it's our biggest population that we see, hands down, and growing exponentially. We offer a couple evening classes a week. We have Zoom nonstop, and we have a whole recorded library, and that is the best answer I have for you at this point.
For now.
For now, because it is
Yeah.
extremely tough. It's tough from a program officer standpoint of developing and getting all the scheduling out there. It's tough to hire coaches that
Right.
want to work with Parkinson's. I find that to be extremely difficult. There's a lot of barriers there. At my facility, before we moved to our new space, I had about 15 coaches that worked for me, and 4 out of that amount were interested in joining. The rest really, and this hurts to hear, they were like, though they would really refer to InMotion as those people in that place. And it really bothers me, because aren't we in this business because we want to help people be better? I mean, our mission
Right.
is to help people with Parkinson's feel better every day. Come on, that's what we do. To help people. And so I find that very difficult. And I say that in terms of scheduling. I have 35 coaches, God bless them, and they stretched. And when we talk about adding 9 classes, that didn't happen overnight. That happened with, how can I rearrange my schedule? How can I do more? And it's really asking a lot of my coaches.
Right.
I did hire about 7 new coaches at the turn of this year. It really happened organically, which is great. But it's been a dogfight ever since. So it will come, and we will do more for sure.
Well, you've done an awful lot since you started, and then since COVID in general, just coming to your new location and all the things that you're doing. It's an amazing thing. And people really need to look into what you do. They do. So how would people reach out to you if they want to help, if they have a family member that they want to bring there or introduce there, or they just want to help you, they want to donate, if they want to be part, they want a job, who knows?
Hey, they go to our website, beinmotion.org. That's the easiest way to get a hold of us. One of your best contacts is John Ambrose, jambrose@beinmotion.org. And he is really how you get started at InMotion, whether that's you're a person with Parkinson's and you want to get into orientation, or you're someone that wants to volunteer in classes, you want to be a volunteer at our front desk. That really is the best way to go.
And do you have a donation link on your website if people just want to donate?
Of course we do. Yes.
Good,
We need
good.
all the help we can get, always.
Well, so is there any parting words of wisdom you want to leave out there about what you do and why it's important that people really take a look at InMotion?
Yeah, I just want to say that people with Parkinson's truly have the power to change the script, and you don't have to be someone that you don't have to be a warrior with this. You could be a warrior. You have the power to be a warrior and truly change the direction of your disease. You don't have to be isolated. You don't have to hide away. We're a community that will embrace you, love you, and help you be better. We care and we want to help. And so if you are someone with Parkinson's and you're listening to this, find me, find us, come see us. Let us help you. Let us help you.
You don't have to be powerless.
No, Absolutely not. Come be better every day with us. Let me teach you what it means to get 1% better every day, have a little chip on your shoulder with Parkinson's. That's what we are. We're not a pat on the back, feel sorry. We're about having the right mentality to attack it head on, and be well. So,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad we finally got you on.
Graham, thank you.
Hopefully we'll have you back. Maybe you can talk about your new things coming up. That would be awesome.
Sounds good.
So for anybody watching, please take a look at InMotion. Please reach out in any way you can to help the group, because whatever you do, every little bit can make a difference.
Absolutely. Have a great
Thank you so
evening,
much.
everybody.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.